Hey everybody, it's another report from the 1672 team. I'm Dave Hatt, owner of Jingasa Games and creator of 1672.
I'm Woodrow Parody, monster creator and game designer.
And we're here to tell you how game design can take one skill and turn into something entirely different.
Quite a few.
Oh man. This is an insider on the game development, giving you an update of what we've been thinking and doing for the last bit. The particular subject in mind is crafting. When you're building characters in role-playing games, one of the things to be considered is the primary consideration in a lot of role-playing games is combat.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent a long time making sure that combat was ironed out. It's actually the easiest of our systems that we had to deal with because not only does it have a lot of known factors, but we knew exactly what we were looking for, what materials we had to work with for combat.
Yeah.
Guy puts pointy end in another guy, and he eventually falls over and leaks. But for the long story short, we had the opportunity, because we knew that, to add a lot of flavor and flair to combat. And we came up with a really elaborate system of combat that is easy to grok, but rewarding if you decide to go down all the crazy little squirrely loopholes and rabbit dens.
Yeah.
The next process for role-playing games that we wanted to incorporate in 1672 is social combat. Not as readily used.
Yeah, it's not always in a system and not always to great effect. I think we've done a very good job.
Yeah. And in social combat in 72, we designed yet a different system that can overlay combat, martial combat, so that you can have a conversation with the guy you're killing, or his neighbor, or his friend, or his dog. Not yet.
You
not
could,
his dog yet.
Theoretically, the dog doesn't talk back.
It doesn't talk back, so
Yeah.
you can intimidate the dog, though.
You can bark.
Like a dog. And there's rules. But you don't use those all the time. That would make you crazy, and we have a school for that called the Ludoc. Or the Carandrus.
The Carandrus can talk to dogs.
We'll talk about those in a while. But the specific focus of this conversation is the third aspect that we wanted to add to your characters. You can build a martial character, you can build a social character, you can blend the two. But one of the things that a lot of people forget about when they're building characters, especially in a rich world like 72's, building, repairing, and buying and selling stuff. It's not going to be the premier, oh, look at me, I'm the master merchant hero of the day. But there are, in our adventures, people who could be considered merchants and craftsmen of various sorts who are key and pivotal players in the story. And we want to give the players that opportunity.
You need to have, like, a smuggling ship in order to do a thing, so you need to craft your smuggling ship, potentially.
That, and you have to be able to buy, sell, and trade the commodities you're smuggling.
Or fix the ship when it runs aground.
Yeah, fix the ship when it runs aground, gets blown to smithereens. There are things.
Or get a new ship.
Or get a new ship. Or, buy a new ship, make a new ship. So there are a plethora of reasons for including crafting mechanics and the things associated with them in any given role-playing game. And in 72, we want to make it the third aspect of the skill space and the school space. We've been talking to you a lot about the various semi-quasi-magical schools, the martial schools and the social schools, but we think we finally hammered out...
Started hammering.
Well, like I said, this is the behind the scenes, right? So, crafting's gone on a little bit of a journey recently. It started off as a single skill.
Yep.
Our skills are built a lot like 7C, so you have the skill and then 3 knacks underneath it. The skill itself is just a generic knowledge and allows you to put knowledgeable tags in a scene using generic fate rules. The 3 knacks underneath it were fabrication to make the thing, design to design the thing so that you can fabricate it, and experimentation so that you could change the design you have to make something new. It had a few drawbacks.
Very generic.
Yeah. I think Ed was the one that brought up the idea that even though the process of welding and sewing are very close, you don't see a seamstress going out on the construction line and like taking a torch welder to things.
Similar concepts, not the same skill.
And that's never mind, a person who makes a cake as a person who builds a ship.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can build a ship out of a cake. Well, you could, but it's still a cake.
It would be very specialized.
Yeah. Oh, but you could repair the cake with some sort of cake skill if you had it. But the problem was that the skill covered everything. It was the generic, I make, fix, and do everything skill with everything we have. not acceptable, especially when we have 7 martial skills and just as many social skills that you can operate with. One profession skill that covers all bases of crafting and creation, no bueno.
Yeah.
So we broke it with the hammer.
With well, not that hammer. The brain hammer.
I wanted to break it with this hammer. I was about to just.
But that would also break the table.
All right, so think about our perspective on this. So we want to have this third aspect be just as viable as the other two. It doesn't have to be explored, but neither does social combat nor martial combat. But it means it needed some more meat and potatoes. Like, for instance, not crafting everything off of one skill, making it a tremendous economic advantage to just take crafting and say you win. That's bad.
Yeah.
So it expanded into initially, what was it, like a couple skills? Was it 2 skills? Was it repair? I forget.
We had repair. We had basically fix / make the thing, and then design / engineer the thing.
It was still super fix everything at that point, and then a lot of people started chiming in about specializing the skill or making it a macro skill.
Yeah, making a blacksmith fix / make the thing, or a baker fix / make the set thing.
That way you can only work within the purview that you had the macro for. But the arguments came back and forth. Should be one skill with lots of macros? Should there be a lot of big skills with sub-macros? Like, for instance, at one point in the conversation it was carpentry, and then there was like shipwright and cooper and things like that all under it.
Yeah.
That got complicated.
There's-
And it was different than our other skills.
And there's a lot of things you could theoretically do with this stuff.
Yeah. I guess the real big part was we're kind of pulling shit out of the ether to try and make a system that had no basis on the game system eventually connect somewhere. And it left us stranded for a while. We ended up with a mess of ideas that just started colliding. And at one point, no joke, we were all talking the same way and magically all ended up on a different page. So when I listened to everybody, because I was writing some of the stuff down, when I was listening to everybody, Frank would say one thing, and then Ed would say a thing, and then V would say a thing, and you would say a thing, and I would say a thing, and then we'd argue over it, and then I'd write it all down, and I'd go, is this good? And y'all looked at me like I was nuts, because I just interpreted all this information completely differently. than everybody
Potato!
else. Yeah, we got potatoes. And then we had those with the hammer.
Now we have mashed potatoes, which is
Actually, the thing you can make with cooking.
modification
Yeah,
of cooking.
a modification of cooking. And you can't repair a potato, unfortunately. That's no good. So, I mean, what's your impression of what we were doing there? I mean,
So it's very similar to how we made ships, in all honesty, where we just kind of smash our brains into each other and then we get something. So right now, my interpretation of what we have is a pseudo macro skill, if I'm understanding correctly.
well, right now, where we stand, or where we were at then?
No, where we stand now.
Where we stand now? Now, that's a different interpretation than I have.
Well,
Hi.
definitions aside, it's basically we have 3 craft skills.
We have 3 basic craft skills.
Yes, and those can do sort of everything.
Yes. Well, let's talk through it then, because this is part of the fun, is you get to see us kind of ponder through and make this work. What we discussed, as I understand it, which, oh my god, and yours is going to be different, so yay, hi. So we have broken craft, which was 1 skill with 3 knacks, into 3 skills with 3 knacks. Each one focused, 3 knacks each. Each one focused around the different aspects of crafting, and they're still very generic at this point in the conversation, because you still need to design a thing. You have to get used to it, understand how it works. That's 1 skill is now fully engrossed in that. Then you have to make the thing. That's another skill that's important, is actually crafting process, logistics, and actually banging the thing out, whether it's a cake or a ship. And then the last one was actually a profession-focused skill. That's the one that's still a bit wobbly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like blacksmith or chef.
And you use the last one to justify what you can make with the first 2. So you need the profession at a whatever rank to assist your ability to fabricate or design something. So you cannot just go out with this particular set of skills. We'll talk about that, a little bit of survival thing in a second, I guess. You can't just take these skills willy-nilly and make whatever you want in the game now. If you want to be the swordsmith for a party of adventurers, you could do such a thing. But you gotta commit to it. You actually have to take all three of these skills, and then you have to dump some more points into your investment. You have to spend about a school's worth, at least an apprentice, about 25 points of your 250 starting points, to be able to craft something more than generic junk.
Yeah, and we've also talked about making schools for crafting, correct?
Yes, that's a wave 2 kind of a deal. After we get the main rulebook out, we've already got a lot of ideas for wave 2.
I thought we were, okay.
What?
Completely different interpretation. I thought we were going to make schools for wave 1 as well.
We will be.
Okay.
But I'm talking like more schools, like nation-based schools and different tradecraft schools, organization-based schools for wave 2.
The concept is it's a it's a first renaissance.
Yes.
Yeah, because the second wave is a few years later, so it doesn't always get called 1672. That's just one era, and then as the waves go by, approximately 4 to 6 years go by per. By the way, 1688 is a bad year for anybody who knows what our fluff is, and if you don't, email me and I will enlighten you. But the big trick is these skills, when combined, and when formatted into what eventually became a school, when we were talking about it, that mechanical format gave it a lot of meat and potatoes to work with. It allowed you to be a specialist. It still gives you a ton of generic trade skills, but while you're that specialist, you can actually customize and create and expand upon the rules for any of the trappings in the game. That's the goal. We know how to do that. We just don't know how to marry that quite with the points and the market yet. We've got ideas. We've got lots of ideas. So we essentially, at the end of the day, created one school so far that when you take it, the plot you take to get into the school, because every school requires a plot to get into, defines what that school can do. As an example, what do you want to be?
I would like to be a stonemason.
You want to be a stonemason. So I tell you, well, that's cool. So go ahead and advance the stonemason plot. A stonemason apprentice would be the name of this plot.
Very well.
Right? And you do so, right?
Yes, obviously.
And it has a curriculum requirement of these 3 skills we just talked about. The fabrication, the design, and then the profession, right? Cool. So when you have these 3 skills and you meet the requirements, you become an apprentice stonemason. Cool. Now you get all the benefits of an apprentice school, and what it does is it modifies the skills, the 3 skills you have, to be specifically useful towards stonemasonry. Now, there's dozens and dozens of different professions, both large and small, so we can't come up with mechanics for all of them without eating an entire other book. So what we've done is we've decided the theme is stonemasonry, right? Now, what stonemasonry does is it lets you create and design things within that purview. It essentially becomes a written tag, a permanent tag on you that every time you build something, you have to refer to. I'm a stonemason, so I can't haul off and, be a cooper or I can't build cakes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that with this particular skill set. I'm a stonemason. Now, we haven't discussed Journeyman or Master yet, but we do know that they will all affect the power and the influence of the particular knacks underneath the skills that you have to craft, thus making the single craft skill that we started with an unlimited number of skills within this contained system. So you can be specific or broad. We have to put some limiters on it, which we'll get to. We'll update you on that. But in general, it lets you be a specialist for your crafting.
You can be the guy that makes things.
Yeah. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
And it means that you can have 2 people that have very close purviews. Like, let's say you do have a stonemason and a carpenter. Both of them are required to build things. But because one's a stonemason and one's a carpenter, they build different things, or they build them out of different materials.
Yeah.
So it gives more variety to people who wanted to do something similar, but wanted to be just different enough to go about it. like difference between like a weaponsmith and then like possibly a Stein firearm smith later. It's a completely different system, and all that goes into it. And that would be like a nation-based school for Stein, building firearms. Yeah. All right. So backtracking a bit. What do the skills do if you don't have this ridiculous system we've put together to make them a specific purview with 3 skills that work under it?
Well, just like with combat, yeah, I can be a really good swordsman just having the skill, but I don't have the nifty tricks of a corsair. Corsair has some nifty tricks and is better at combat than I am if he has the same level of skill. If you do not have the purview for the crafting, you can't make as good of things. So they're downgraded from what you could normally buy. But you can still make them on the fly. So I could make my makeshift spear and go hunt some rabbit so I can eat. And then make my makeshift rabbit stew so I can eat. Now, these are not fancy. This is not the best spear ever, and this is not amazing stew, but I have got food and eaten it without having this equipment at the start of the adventure.
Correct. They're essentially like flimsy trappings. They don't have the full mechanics. Like, we're going to have an inventory list because Woody loves gear. So we're going to have a lot of it. But not overpowering a lot. We're not going to Shadowrun the crap out of this. We're going to give you some useful stuff. But in lieu of that, this doesn't refer to that gear list. That gear list is the market list. You can buy that in a store or shop or in a port that you visit. What we're talking about with these 3 skills where you can fabricate, design, and all that, without the school that we're providing for it, they just facilitate the idea that you have a thing. So you could go buy, like for instance, the spear concept, right? Mm-hmm. So you can use the crafting skill to make a spear. Cool, right? You just take a stick and a rock and you go put like 6 rabbits on it and put them over fire. It's really cool. But it doesn't actually give you much in the way of mechanical advantage. It's equivalent to like a tag at a fate. If you have a thing, maybe you can call upon it for a bonus to your dice roll, maybe you can't, and it's hard to use.
Yeah.
But you can like crap out like a bunch of these things. They're gonna eat your inventory up and be low quality. Then you talk about using it outside of being a craftsman, and then you have that. If you were a craftsman, let's say you were a weaponsmith, right? Or a guy that makes spears in some fashion or another, has the capacity.
Yeah.
They don't make a shitty piece of like wood with a stone and things. They instead make a custom haft with a steel tip and things like that, giving it starting base the mechanics that the market would have.
Yeah, but without spending as much because you spend points on skills.
You do, yeah. That's the benefit of going whole hog for the crafting mechanics as opposed to just kind of grabbing the craft skill and saying, aha, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
So that's 2 levels to crafting. One of which is specialized, which gives you a lot of powerful mechanics. Hi.
Baby angry.
I'll go deal.
To create, modify. That is our manager, by the way. Baby has decided to be the social manager of 1672. Currently, he is telling us our video is not up to his standard.
He's a really rough boss.
He is. Demanding, no less. Lots of milk.
Yeah.
Lots of milk.
Those poor interns.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. Alright, so... internet, meet the manager. He's doing great today. So, now that all 4 of us are here, we were talking about the other aspects of how it would affect a campaign and character creation. So, well, I gotta ask a question then. So, when I build a swordsman, right? When I build a duelist, I'm gonna put steel baby go. I'm gonna put roughly half my points of my starting character into making sure that the traits are there to support it, and that the skills I have are good. And I'm gonna buy a school because they're cool. I'm gonna buy them, a duelista or serpenti or something.
As an example, say Will Scarlet in Pirates of the Caribbean started as a blacksmith, practiced with his with the weapons all the time, then found a different path.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm mostly saying is when I build a swordsman, I'm going to build a swordsman and then build everything around it.
Right.
That was the point I was getting at. Is I'm going to dedicate a good chunk of my starting character with the concept of making that swordsman work while keeping its theme, and then I'm going to have some points left that I'm going to probably then blacksmith in, like in Pirates. That it's reversed for me.
Yeah.
I don't start with I was a blacksmith. I go, I am this at the beginning of the campaign, and then I was this, and that's why I justify these other skills. What about you? What's your idea on what would you invest, and what priority is it when you choose a theme for your character?
When I choose a theme for my character, I think your school does dictate a lot about what you want to be. Like if you're a duelist, you're a heroic character. You want to go out there and you have wanderlust. And if you're a Serpenti, you are an adventure seeker, and that sort of thing. So your school dictates a lot about your theme, in my opinion.
Okay. Yes, because it has all the flavor in the world for it, and they're one of the few windows to the world initially you're going to have as a player.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would start with a profession and then think about getting a sword school.
Aha!
So then I come from a place and I have a background.
That's also another way to do it. I like that because while you and I are alike, Ed actually is still just as viable because building your character from the background forward is a thing that not only do several role-playing games mandate, but is a very healthy way to make a well-rounded character. And now that we've been experimenting with gameplay, we have a group right now running through at 500 points. You start with 250. 500 is very advanced level play, with 700, 750 points being about the end of a character's career. The very end of a character's... But playing around at 500, because we're twinking it, I've seen very focused builds. And the flavor kind of was sacrificed for the mechanics. Now, that's the point of the exercise that we had. But we had people with like 4 to 5 skills, and they were mastering a school, and their traits were all twinked out for that specific school. And we know for a fact, after seeing the numbers, that that's just not a way to live. Like, you can't. At 500 points, you could be this cool as all the characters we're making. They like the priest. The priest is really cool. It's a master priest. It's really nifty. And at that rate, if you really twink it, you can get a master. If you really twink it, you can theoretically get a master twice at 500 points. But your character is completely dictated. You are the sum of your mechanics. It's terrible.
You haven't chosen any additional skills, and that's something I also think about. Is I like skill-focused characters, so I will probably only take apprentice to start out with, and then take a lot of well-rounded skills to support my theme.
Yeah, and a good GM will provide opportunities for people to change their minds and their paths, and that's the whole idea. You're not supposed to end at master of whatever. You're supposed to end at awesome character. And you don't have to be best at a school of any type in order to end a character's career. In fact, we also have a build where we have multiple schools, and that guy's a bit derpy, but he's a lot easier to play than the master priest.
And a lot more options available to him. Not necessarily as powerful in those options, but...
And of course you sacrifice dice pool, but you gain roleplay.
Yeah.
Which is the point, right? So, in that essence, knowing that if you twink it, you get basically one path you can run across. You don't get a lot of points for the twinks to really enjoy their character for the long haul. So determining your investment for what you want your character to have, how much is this part of your character worth to you, is important. The casual players that we run across, my wife, she plays in several groups, and a lot of them, they actually don't really, I mean, they have goals. Like, a lot of them are very role-play oriented. But they let themselves wander through different skills and purchases and things like that as they go to justify their experiences as they go. They grow as a character in various directions. Thereby, their characters have more skills than they know what to do with in a lot of cases, but they also have a cool theme they maintain within that. You know, if you're a mercenary, you won't go out and be a courtier or pretty. You know, you get a scarred face. And they appreciate the idea that he could take the court skill or the social skills in those games, but they won't take it so far. And that's a whole different kind of roleplay from the twinks at the 500 points that we're testing right now that would prevent them from ever getting to where they want to go. Back to my point again, they decided for that group that they had an investment in a background, like what Ed was talking about. My background is I was a blacksmith. Took blacksmithing. They probably will take enough in blacksmithing, in this case now, that they'll buy the apprentice school for the crafting. Take blacksmithing as a theme, get the 3 skills. And they may not go any further than that, because now they're going to go off and be a pirate if it was the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And so they'll have those skills as a backup whenever they want. They have that cool background. They could tag any of that stuff or use any of those skills narratively. And then they spend the rest of their time doing stuff. Excuse me. Some of that even before character creation is done. Some of it maybe after. So it's sort of like a split. It's like a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
And then you and me, we focus on getting a thing done and then rounding out the character. Or coughing, one of the two. So how much do you invest? And the honest to God answer is as much as you want. But if you want to have a profession, you're talking 25 to 40 points of your 250 to start with a good profession, in my opinion. I mean, and that's not including the trait backup. But then again, your traits are helping you with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The major trait that's going to help is merit.
Oh, yes, because that dictates how much you can carry, effectively.
And other things.
Yeah.
Merit's also
And also your knowledges.
knowledges, your professionalism, your currency.
Your reputation.
Yeah, it's very important for merit in profession skills and crafting skills especially. Do you want to focus on merit at the sacrifice of all other things? Probably not.
No.
But having a rank 3, which is above the minimal average, it's in the range of good, to very good, would be recommended for any professional that does crafting.
You want your maker mark identified after all.
Yeah.
Right. And you want people to know what it is. And you want to have the resources to be able to do your profession. Mowgli living in the jungle is about merit 1. Merit 3 is probably a civilized gentleman or lady of our 1672 world.
Yeah.
Who has resources, backing, has a few years of currency under the belt as well as contacts. That's the difference between the 1 and the 3. The 2 is you're kind of scrubby, but you know what you're doing.
Kind of a peasant. A little bit higher.
It depends on where you come from, but generally, yeah, you're new is the idea. You don't have backing. You're pretty much off on your own in the world trying to make things work.
You're a tradesman. You don't have a maker's mark.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it does mean that any of our crafting rules will rely on one trait more than others. So the focusing your character's points becomes even more valid. What are your opinions on any of this? Like what kind of characters you make? What do you think about the system? Or where do you think we stand on it? How much more should we address with it?
How much more should we address with it?
I mean, this is the behind the scenes. They get to hear us derp about things that we talk about. We don't have to go, yes, Internet, this is absolutely perfect, and this is the way it is. We get to say, holy crap, we're thinking.
I can definitely say that this is going to... 50% of this is not going to be correct next week.
50?
50%.
Oh, come on.
At the very least.
20%.
Probably 15.
How much?
A substantial portion of this is going to change because everything changes until it's solidified. But
I don't think that's something to fear.
that's not something to fear. That's the way that the system gets better. The only reason why we have as good of a system as we have at this rate is because for the past 2 years I've been calling you down and telling you to fix it
And building monsters.
and helping.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you're right that there will be a lot of changes, but there's also expansion as well as modification.
Yes, because as we have said, in the second wave, if you will, we are intending to put in more schools than just the one that we're talking about, the one generic.
Correct.
More nation-focused for the renaissance of this world.
I mean, putting it in perspective, each wave is going to be roughly equivalent in the amount of content. So, in Wave 1, we're putting out 18 to 24 schools and appropriate skills and backgrounds. Wave 2 should be roughly equivalent.
Yeah.
And you'll see like an arms race to it.
Yes, one of the big things about 1672 for themes is generally the world's destroyed every 88 years. The calendar's
Normally.
only 88 years long, not 100. It's not a normal century. And there's been 16 of those since the calendar was created.
Hence that little dot in between the two numbers at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it's the 16th century, the 72nd year.
It's
Good year.
well, this time we're trying to reset the clock and cancel the apocalypse.
It may
Maybe.
have. It's already had ramifications because for those of you that have been reading dime novels, and those of you that have been coming in, you know that the background says that 72 years ago, as opposed to a complete rewrite of the world, because the Yagran come in and they take this to everybody and they leave only the people they like alive, and they leave only the technology and knowledge behind that they want to have left behind, in a constant process of culling. Last time it didn't work out quite right. We've mentioned that a couple times. The Tempesti, who had been hidden before this point, revealed themselves, kicked the Yagran in their can, and sent them packing before they can finish the job. That means that this particular era is the most important era of the world.
It's had the most development.
Exactly, and there's no limit. All the information that used to be all canned up in places and stored away and secreted because the Yagran were coming, now is getting released into the world. The Tempesti are spreading their knowledge everywhere. The Amandrians are a lot more free with their libraries. And so we're having a renaissance. A renaissance on, well, it's a renaissance on fire, actually, if you think about it, because there's no major controlling factor that could be prepared for the freedom that was offered by survival. And there are organizations out there that will be detailing in Wave 2 and Wave 3 that know that the Yagran will come back, and the Yagran will probably be pissed. So they're doing their utmost to advance everything they can and get as many resources as possible. Sorry, boss, I'm doing my best. To prepare for the next invasion. So everything's advancing terrifyingly fast. Like, for instance, right now, firearms in their absolute infancy. We're talking like matchlocks, maybe as specialist cool things that nobles have.
Well, yeah.
The firearms
Not good.
exist as like arquebus and things like that.
Yeah.
They're very primitive. Expect that to change very soon. We have a couple wars brewing, and of course, weapons technology is going to be a thing. Expect courtly changes and attire to change. Expect trends to vary from place to place. And as the Tempest gets more ingrained, expect the social climate to change everywhere in our world. Because it won't all become Tempesti, but everybody's going to react to that kind of a thing.
Damn dirty pirates.
Yeah. Well, if you're Bonte, anyway.
Yeah.
Everybody else, well, no, they're actually damn dirty pirates.
Yeah. They're nice, damn dirty pirates.
Well, as long as they got the food, yeah.
Here's our. We'll take this. You have this. Bye.
This is piracy, right? Technically. But we'll go into them a bit later. The technological revolution that's going to be happening. Each wave will update to where things like firearms will become more advanced, more readily available, and cheaper. It'll take materials and supplies and change the way they work to make crafting itself far more important and potent as it goes.
And also, trade is going to get a huge overhaul in a lot of ways due to the social climate.
Right now, you're just sailing around a boat going, I arrived in this port, what shall I do? Expect by Wave 2 or 3 there to be port authorities, patrol craft, laws, trits, sanctions.
Trade routes.
Oh God. Because the world's finally taking off for the first time in, 16 of their centuries.
Yeah.
And they're really eager to do it. But, technology in a nutshell, we took one skill, turned it into 3 skills.
And a school.
And a school, and advanced mechanics that we'll use this on until we can get back with you. Alright guys, the manager's angry at us, so we gotta give up. Peace out, and don't let the manager get angry. It's bad.